Now that we have the model assembled, let's take a look at construction sequencing. In this chapter, we're going to use the Timeliner tool to simulate the construction process. We begin by creating a task inside of Timeliner. And this task is similar to tasks that you would see in something like Microsoft Project or Primavera. I'm going to give this task a name, for example, ground floor slab. Once I have the task created, I need to give it a start date and an end date. And then finally, I need to associate a specific 3D element with this task. So I'm going to select the slab, and I'll right-click on the actual task itself and attach a selection. Finally, we need to tell this task what type of task it is, in this case, construct. And task type simply is a way to control the visual representation of this model as we simulate construction. Let's create another task, and this time we're going to use a different tool to actually grab the elements we need. So in this case, we'll call it ground floor columns. And rather than actually going out and naming or grabbing all of the columns individually, we're going to use the selection tree to help us find those columns for us. So here in my selection tree, I have all of the different models that make up this particular building. Underneath the structure, I can see there's all the individual layers, and there's the columns that make up the ground floor. By selecting it in my selection tree and then right-clicking on the task, I'm able to attach that entire layer to this task. I'll now give a start and end date just like we did with the previous task, and I'll give it a construction type. Finally, I'll create one more task, and this time let's call this the first floor slab. Again, I'll give it a start and end date. And I'm setting these up so that they start and end one right after the other. Again, I'll give it a construct task type. And I'll use my selection tree one more time to assign this layer to this specific task. So let's go over to the Simulate tab, and we'll actually see our building being constructed. Now you'll notice that as objects begin their task day and end their task day, they start out from a light green to a full solid model construction type. And this is that task type that we associated in the task list earlier. We have different ways to control visibility, whether it's transparent or changing colors, but it's just simply a way that during the simulation we can actually control the visibility of things. Now you can imagine that creating all of these tasks and associating elements can take a lot of time. But there are some tricks that we can apply to help speed this process up. Most construction professionals will have a construction schedule in an external tool similar to Microsoft Project or Primavera. On the Links tab of Timeliner, I'm able to actually link in those external project schedules with my current Navisworks model. So in this case, I'm going to grab an external Microsoft project that I've already created. And now that I have the link established, I'm actually going to build the task list from this link. So now if I look at my task list, they're all created. But I still have to associate elements with all of these tasks. Again, I could do it manually, whether I picked individually in the model or using the selection tree. But I have another opportunity, and that's to use a rule. It's essentially a script or a programmatic way to assign objects. So you can see that I've created a rule that says map Timeliner task from the column name in the task list to layers with the same name. So I'll apply this rule, and if I go to the task list, you'll see now I have a bunch of objects that are automatically selected and attached to the task. My final step is to actually assign all of these a task type to control their visibility, in this case construct, and now I'll be able to actually simulate this construction process. And again, we see that process of a transparent object becoming solid object as the task is completed. But I'm able to really understand now what's going to be constructed and at what time frame. This may allow construction professionals to plan more effectively, or maybe even eliminate some unnecessary need or waste. One final tip is to understand that a lot of designers, when they create their models, are not going to account for temporary construction. Things like scaffolding, cranes, storage trailers, all of these will not be traditionally associated with the model. So by having a tool like Revit Architecture, construction professionals can literally model these temporary structures. I've done that in Revit Architecture. I've actually modeled the scaffolding that's going to be on the back side of this building. Now you can see that I actually have brought in the scaffolding here on the back side of the building, and I'm able to actually see that in relation to my building. Again, I could associate a construction task with these individual elements and see the entire model build.